guys remember this idiot? But when the team is good, you fail to notice the misses and the busts. And Jordan Davis has been nothing but a bust. Like, don't get it twisted. He's not good. He was drafted, I remind you, 12th. They traded up for him. 12th overall, and we're getting a third defensive tackle out of that. I gotta be honest, I was shocked they picked up a fifth-year option. Yeah, if you can't tell, that was me. Yeah, that. Hand up, that was me. Now, this wasn't a season ago. This wasn't 2 seasons ago or 3. It was this season. It was like after the games had started. It was actually the jumping off point of Jordan Davis just shutting me the fuck up. Now, if I was like douchey sports radio guy, I'd be like, well, you know, I'm going to take credit for this because clearly he saw the video. And no, I did a whole video on how Jordan Davis was a bust. And hey, it's okay because the team's really good. Busts are going to happen, but we can acknowledge it. And Jordan Davis, ever since I put that out, has been nothing short of spectacular. And I never, in my wildest dreams, would have thought that I'd be sitting here at any point making a video like this. They have to extend Jordan Davis. They have to do it. Now, I meant to do this last week after the Chargers game. Because in the Chargers game, he was dominant. Like, he jumped off the screen at how dominant he was. He has set new marks in every category for his NFL career. Got 4.5 sacks. I think his previous career high was like 2.5. He's got 59 tackles. I think his former career high was 45. 6 tackles for losses. I think his former career high was like 2. You know, like he has leveled up to the point where I'm sitting there going, this is no longer a rotational depth piece for the Birds. This is no longer just a big body that can clog up a running lane. No, like this is a football player who has transformed himself into a beast. And I think when you came into this season, at least for me, you were banking on Jalen Carter taking the next step. I don't know how many of us were banking on Jordan Davis taking the next step because this is year 5. And he's done it. And it took 5 years for the Eagles to be rewarded for their patience, but they have been rewarded for their patience. And they have gotten the most out of this kid. You know, he was the 12th overall pick. And because of that, expectations are going to be pretty high, pretty lofty. And I don't think he lived up to them in his first 4 years. He was okay, but what he's done this year, I think has earned him an extension, and I'm really interested to see how far the Eagles are going to go. Obviously, after I made that video, he goes out, he blocks the game-winning field goal against the Rams, and returns it for a touchdown, and I had to do a mea culpa, and I'm fine with that. Like I will be the first one to throw my hand up if I am wrong. I have no problem admitting it because the reality is when you talk sports, 50% of the time you're probably going to be wrong. It's okay. We can admit defeat sometimes. But even then, when I admitted, hey, like I was wrong on this, like he showed up, he shut me up. Like that's awesome. Eagles win and they're 3-0 and all that. I never thought that I'd be sitting here making a video saying Howie Roseman needs to extend this guy. And in that original video that I implore all of you to go back and watch because you'll just get a good laugh out of it. But in that video, I stated that I was surprised they picked up his 5th-year option. And now I'm sitting there going like, thank God they picked up his 5th-year option because in this season to watch what Jordan Davis is doing with the idea that Jordan Davis would do that for another team because the Eagles didn't pick up his 5th-year option, that would suck. The Eagles have been, as I said, rewarded for their patience with this kid. And I don't know if it was an aha moment in the offseason. Obviously he credits Peloton and all of that, and Ali Lovewell. I don't know. They all have like these ridiculous fake names. It's like Jonah Mountain Sky. Peloton's obnoxious. But whatever it is, whether it be Vic Fangio motivating him, the kid has performed to the point where if they don't bring him back, I don't know what their depth at D-tackle is really going to look like. And let's call it what it is. Jordan Davis has been better this season than Jalen Carter has. Now, how much of that is Jalen Carter getting double-teamed and triple-teamed and quadruple-teamed and, everybody on the offensive line just guarding him? I don't know. But when I watch the games, I'll tell you one guy shines, and that is Jordan Davis. and the other guy's kind of invisible. And I think when we look at it, if Jalen Carter's impact is not being made, when you're just watching the game, if you don't notice him, but you're noticing the guy next to him, and the guy next to him, i.e. Jordan Davis or Moro Jomo or whoever, is balling out because of the fact that Jalen Carter is getting double teamed. That was the whole goal in the first place, right? Like, the goal was to have these two dominant defensive tackles where offensive linemen were going to have to pick their poison on who to double team, which was going to leave a one-on-one matchup with the other guy. Whether that be we got to double team Jordan Davis, or whether that be we have to double team Jalen Carter. And for a long time, it looked like Jalen Carter was going to get double teamed and triple teamed, and you were going to have to hope to God that one of these guys got home and did their job in a one-on-one matchup. And now it's becoming a routine where when I watch the games, like, Jordan Davis is out there just making plays, whether it be one of those tackles for losses, whether it be a quarterback rush, something. And in that original video, I stated, like, it's getting to the point where when I see Jordan Davis make a play, I'm sitting on the couch going, like, oh my God, he did something. I was shocked when he would make a play at that point, and this is, week 3 of the season. Now I am used to it. Now, when I see a defensive lineman get home on the quarterback, or a tackle for a loss or whatever, and the angle of the camera's a little weird, you can't really see the number, I'm just expecting it to be Jordan Davis. Like, that's how good this guy has played. The Eagles rarely, I feel like, lock up guys mid-season. Howie Roseman's talked about that, so we'll have to wait for the offseason. But I felt the need to come on here and remind everybody about the idiot back in week 3. But also, I got to tip my cap to what Jordan Davis has done this season and how good he's played. And I think that he has more than earned a contract extension. I think the two guys on the defensive front that have really balled out and really shined this season and really leveled up their game are Jordan Davis and Jalen Hunt and Nakobe Dean. You can't ignore Nakobe Dean. He's playing at all-pro level. He's been all over the field since coming back from injury, by the way. But you look at those three guys, 2 of them being from Georgia, and those are the guys that I look at and I go, like, man, like, I didn't expect this out of them. Nakobe Dean, I didn't expect it because he's just returning from injury. Jalen Hunt, in just his second year, looks like an absolute true find. And for a defense that lost a lot, for a defense that lost Josh Sweat, who's set to set a career high in sacks, and they needed to go out and they need to get Jalen Phillips, you're seeing finally, with that trade coming together and with the emergence of Jordan Davis and all of it, their defense has been able to keep them in these games where the offense has struggled to get 17 points. So, look, big win for the Birds yesterday. They needed it desperately. I don't care if it's a 2-win team. You needed a win against a 2-win team. But I had to come on and just say, like, they need to extend Jordan Davis. I can't believe I'm saying it, but they do. All right, subscribe, please. Subscribing is cool. Hit thumbs up if you like this, thumbs down. If you don't, I can't wait to throw this out on Twitter and get the LOL, isn't this the same guy who said he was a bust? Yeah, that's why I'm making this video, because we can admit we're wrong. It's okay. I did say he was a bust, and now I'm admitting defeat on that front and saying we need to extend Jordan Davis. And that's why you should subscribe, because I'm not going to ignore that. I'm different. I'm not. But yeah, subscribing, please. That's the most important thing. Like, down, whatever. You know where the buttons are. Go Birds. Episode 3 of Hard Knocks dropped last night. One of these days, I'll actually watch this live and then get this video up quicker so it gets more than 20 views. But alas, I was busy at Avatar last night, and then I had a movie screening tonight. So it took me a little bit to actually watch the episode. But my big takeaways are I liked what we saw as an Eagles fan. And it wasn't just the fact that this was recapping a dominant win against the Raiders. But overall, if there's one takeaway I've had through 3 episodes, it's been more positive than negative. Now, the first episode, I was very negative, and I'll pin that one if you want to see it. And a lot of it had to do with just the lack of self-awareness from Nick Sirianni. I felt like he was trying to get this rhetoric going through the building that the quote-unquote sky wasn't falling. And I still think the sky might be falling. I mean, I don't watch this team and go, oh my God, there's a championship-level team. Even after 31-0 drumming of the Raiders, you do have to take that game with a little bit of a grain of salt and just say, like, hey, it's a 2-win Raiders team. They're with their backup quarterback. It's great that you had the confidence game. And I equate it to me in my playing career. Like, if I was in a slump, there was always the team in the league that you went like, okay, I can't wait for them to show up on the schedule because I can put up some points, I can feel good about myself, I can remind myself why I play the sport, and then we can move on. So while it's great that the Eagles ended up, ending their 3-game losing streak, I think you do have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, and we don't, I think, still know what this team is, who they are. I think the biggest takeaway from this Raiders game was the fact that Saquon Barkley was able to get going, and it's the first time, I feel like, all season that we watched him and we went, okay, there are glimpses of last year's Saquon. And even then, he finished the game with like 70 yards, but a lot of that had to do with the fact that they were up by so much they pulled the starters. So for what we ended up getting from behind the scenes stuff, I like the positivity. And I think that's one of the things that Nick Sirianni is actually good at. I don't give Nick Sirianni a lot of credit, but this is kind of why he has a job. It's the rah-rah, keep guys motivated. And what I've been impressed with is you've seen guys not only continue to be motivated, and I guess they should be, right? They're paid to be professional athletes. They're paid a lot of money. But what I've also been impressed with is you've seen multiple players talking to Nick Sirianni during installs, during practices, talking and picking his brain. And while I don't really think Nick Sirianni is a good head coach, it's pretty clear that the players still at least value his opinion or like him enough to come to him when things aren't going well, i.e. in the middle of a 3-game stretch. But the other takeaway that I'll talk about is something that I brought up in one of my videos. I don't remember which one, but man, doesn't A.J. Brown look miserable? I mean, doesn't A.J. Brown just look like a guy that wants to get out of there? I can't believe he poured hot chocolate for that father and son and then threw it in their face in a desperate attempt to get released or traded. I mean, he's like one step away from taking off his equipment mid-game like Antonio Brown. No, this goes back to the poor, we need a talking point rhetoric of a lot of sports radio. I hate to say it because it's my old industry, but a lot of sports radio of, look, we don't have a lot to talk about. What are we going to talk about? The diva wide receiver, who I still say is not really a diva. I think we are so scared as a fan base that we have T.O. 2.0 that we're not able to see that this guy is not even close to T.O. And a prime example is, look, I know they're winning the game and things are going well, but I don't know, if a guy was miserable, if a guy wanted out, if a guy wasn't happy with his situation, I don't think he's going around giving hot chocolate to fans. I just don't. And there's been a couple of examples of this throughout the season where I feel like the media will ignore it because it doesn't fit the narrative and what they are planning on writing about. And look, I understand it. I mean, I think when you do this job long enough, and I've done it, you're at times willing to ignore some of the facts because it gets in the way of your story that you want to tell, because you got to write about something, you got to talk about something. But in this situation, I think if you're an Eagles fan and you've watched A.J. Brown this season, everything I see outside of the building, everything I've seen in this show, everything I saw this week indicates he's not mad. And I think that was a good takeaway. I like the fact that they highlighted Jalen Phillips. He seems to be, even though they were in the middle of a 3-game losing streak, he seems to be thrilled to be in Philly. I guess why wouldn't you be when you see what's going on with the Dolphins? But we still haven't seen a ton of, I feel like, Jalen Hurts. And other than week 1, we saw him interact a little bit with Devontae Smith. But the last thing that we really got a good look at was just the work ethic of Lane Johnson to get back on the field. And as I was sitting there watching him rehab and work out, it dawned on me of how bad that 2012 draft class was, except for the Birds. I mean, when you look at the first round of the 2012 NFL draft class, it is one of the worst, if not the worst, in NFL history. I mean, Eric Fisher goes number 1, Luke Jokel goes number 2, Deion Jordan goes number 3, and then at number 4, Chip Kelly. I know everyone hates him, but Chip Kelly ends up picking Lane Johnson at number 4 out of Oklahoma, and he's the best right tackle in franchise history, one of the best right tackles to ever play the game, and how fortunate we are that they got that pick right. And then in the second round, they took Zach Ertz, and then in the third round, they took Benny Logan. But those are my big takeaways. Not a ton, admittedly, but it was fun watching Dallas kind of try and convince themselves that they're still in it, and why wouldn't they be? I mean, of course you're going to say, like, oh, we got to get it right. Nobody wants to play us. They have a 1% chance after losing that game. They have a 1% chance in making the playoffs. And You're never going to be able to take 21-0 away from them. I'm sure they're going to hang a banner for that because every time I go live on TikTok, there's some slapdick Cowboys fan writing 21-0 in my chat as if Eagles fans really care about that. But it's going to be interesting to see this week's game because you have a divisional opponent, so they're not spacing it out so much. So I do think you're going to get a good mix of both teams, and then it'll culminate in a lot of coverage of the actual game, which, you know, you're crunched on time. You got to cover 4 different games essentially, and that's tough. So I think we're going to get a good look at this Eagles team and what they are, but they're still playing a not great opponent in the Commanders, who are cooked this season. So it's going to be really tough to see what they are. I mean, it's a situation where we're not going to find out a lot about the Eagles until the playoffs, unfortunately. We're not going to find out if any of this is just because they're playing poor opponents, or have they actually fixed something? Because the next time they play a good team will be the playoffs. So that's all. Subscribe, please. Subscribing is cool. I'd really appreciate it. I'm like 31 away from 1,000, which gets me monetized, so it's a big deal if you could subscribe. I'm not asking you to hit the bell icon or like it or watch any more of my videos, but if you've gotten to this point, you can't hate me, right? So you might as well subscribe. And then, yeah, go Birds. Breaking news as the Phillies get their right fielder for 2026. Their Nick Castellanos replacement, even though Nick Castellanos is still on the roster. We all know what's going to happen on that front, but they agreed to a 1-year, $10 million contract with Adolis Garcia. And I love this move. I love this low-risk move that Dave Dombrowski's made. I've been very critical of Dave Dombrowski. I've been very critical of his low-risk, high-reward moves, neither of which worked out last year with Jordan Romano and Max Kepler. But this isn't Max Kepler. Adolis Garcia, at his worst, I think, is like a 25 home run guy in Citizens Bank Park. You know, last year he had a very, very, very down year. Very down. And this is a guy 2 years ago that hit 37 home runs, had over 100 RBIs, and, you know, is a respectable OBP. And the 2 years that have followed since, including last year, it's been a slow descent. And you figure if you include him in this lineup and you put him in the friendly confines of Citizens Bank Park, you should be able to, I'm not saying get back to 37 home runs, but get back to a respectable number of like a 25-ish home run thing. And when you look at the Phillies outfield right now, they are desperate for power. Because right now, as projected, you figure that Brandon Marsh is going to be in left field, center field is going to be Justin Crawford, and then obviously right field will be Adolis Garcia, but that isn't a ton of power. And I mean, you know, Brandon Marsh will hit maybe if he's healthy, he plays all the games, and, you know, he might run into one here and there. He might top out at 20. More realistic, he's like a 15-ish home run guy. Justin Crawford will be lucky to hit 3. So right there, you're looking at 18 combined home runs. You need a slugger in the right field spot because you don't want to go into a season where, let's call it what it is, right? Like, you're getting a combined, 35 home runs from your outfield? Now, this is me projecting Adolis Garcia gets right. His on-base percentage leaves a lot to be desired. It's kind of a boom or bust situation. You know, the guy does not walk. But then again, if you're pairing him in an outfield with Justin Crawford, who all the guy does is get on base, I can live with that. I like what I saw from Brandon Marsh, who another guy I've been very, very critical of, but I liked what I saw from him after he came back from the injury. His second half, he played very, very well. Maybe he can turn that into something in year, you know, well, what is this, 4, 5? I mean, he's going to be 28 years old, but maybe. But I like this move, and I wasn't enamored with the Max Kepler move when Dombrowski made it, and with the payroll being what it is, at this point, Dombrowski is in a spot where he has to do low-risk, high-reward moves. You know, guys are going on their second contract in the Dave Dombrowski tenure. We just saw that with Kyle Schwarber. So at this point, all the big money that they have is going to be probably allocated to re-signing their own, and that's going to leave the very few spots for these low-risk, high-reward moves. I don't know what that was in the camera, folks. Every time I sit down, like these little fuzzies just start popping up. But I noticed it. That's the point. I've noticed it. But he's going to have to be in a situation where these low-risk, high-reward moves are really his only option, because at this point, the Phillies are done big game hunting. Last year, when you looked at their offseason and the two big signings of Romano and Kepler, it was because of the fact that their payroll actually went up in 2025 from 2024. Believe it or not, and that a big reason why was the extension of Zach Wheeler. He jumped up to $40 million a year, and you had other big time free agents getting a little bit of a bump, like Bryce Harper and Trey Turner. Christopher Sanchez got a bump up in his extension. So these extensions that took place led their payroll to go above $300 million, which now puts Dombrowski in a spot where he has to find these guys. And in this particular spot, I love it. I love the fact that they're getting a guy on a low-end contract. And look, if it doesn't work out, the deadline will be there. They'll address at the deadline. Their minor league system is really, really stacked. I don't see a situation where they're going to move like an Aiden Miller to the outfield, but he does need to be moved because right now he's playing shortstop, and that's kind of occupied for the next 8 years with Trey Turner. So in this particular spot, I like what they did here. I was worried they were going to do another Max Kepler situation, guy who might, pop 20 home runs. And on the flip side, you might be watching this going, Pat, he literally hit 19 last year. What are you talking about? But no, I think that you put him in this ballpark, you put him in this lineup, and you're looking at minimum 25 home runs, and it's something the Phillies need. So credit to Dave Dombrowski. I think he did good on this one. I'm excited to see what they do next. I expected a JT Realmuto contract by now, but I figure that is coming. And then I'll be interested to see if they, what kind of bench pieces they add and what kind of, bullpen arms they add, because that's really all they need. There might be a surprise in there, like Jesus Luzardo's trade last year came out of left field, and pardon the pun, and no one expected that, so there might be something in there, but and I'm not looking forward to the moment that Ranger Suarez signs with another team. But I think your roster is pretty much set at this point, barring a big trade. They'll give Nick Castellanos away for a bag of balls at this point to get out of that contract. So it'll be interesting to see what they do from here. I will remind people that you win championships based on these low-depth moves. When you look at the 08 team, yeah, they had the homegrown talent, but what they also had was a guy in Jason Worth who signed a one-year deal with the Phillies and ends up being, a huge piece. They get a Rule 5 pick in Shane Victorino. They made a minor move to trade for Scott Air, and they picked up J.C. Romero off waivers and Matt Stairs in the August waiver deadline. Like, all those little moves ended up becoming a core of role players that made a massive impact on a team that won a World Series. I'm going to say Super Bowl, a World Series. And a move like this could end up being, one of the dominoes, because we all know that you've got the Schwarbers, the Harpers, the Turners, and, those are the big guys. You need these role players to end up popping off. I think he could be one of them. I love this move. Please subscribe. Subscribing is cool. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you like this move? Do you not like this move? Am I way off base making this out to be like they just signed, Harper? And in reality, they maybe did end up getting Max Kepler 2.0. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Thumbs up, thumbs down. You know where the buttons are. Go Phillies. The losing streak is over. Thank the good Lord. Eagles defeat the Raiders 31-0 in a game that was never in question, never close at all. And I think that ideally you'd look at the two teams and go, yeah, okay. I mean, that's what you expected. But the fact is, with the way that the Eagles have been playing, I don't know how many people expected it. Honestly, I mean, the offense has not looked good. Post-bye, they've averaged 16 points a game, and they put up 31. Now, on one hand, you go, okay, they are facing a 2-win Raiders team. They're facing Kenny Pickett. So they're not even facing the starting quarterback of the Raiders, Geno Smith, because he's injured. You're facing their backup. But Geno Smith, even when he was healthy, he could only manage two wins. That is all true. But the fact remains, the Eagles needed this. Like, the Eagles needed a game where they could just get right. And I equate it to my horrible low-level hockey career, where when I'm in a slump, which has been roughly the past 15 years, there's a team in every single league where they're just horrible. They really shouldn't be in the league. They're terrible. And I call it the confidence game. Like, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to put some points on, and I'm just going to remind myself of why I do this, and we're just going to have an easy win and have fun. And for the Eagles, that was this. They didn't face a team that is headed to the playoffs, which is pretty much what they faced the past 3 to 4 weeks. They didn't face a team that had been in the playoffs last year. They faced a shit show of an organization in the Raiders, and they faced one of the worst teams in the league. But they put it on them, and it is important, because I think when you look at the NFL and you look at weeks 3, 4, and 5, it is okay to sit there and go like, hey, you know what? Winning is the only thing that matters. They'll get it right. But when you reach week 9, 10, 11, 12, and at this point, week 15, you go style points matter. How you beat a team matters. And even though the Eagles were winning some games in like week 9, 10, and 11, how they were doing it wasn't leading to a lot of confidence with the fan base. And then obviously you saw a 3-game losing streak mixed in there, where you sat back as an Eagles fan going, what the hell is going on? Nothing has gotten fixed. Do I think that something has gotten fixed because of what I watched today? Honestly, no. I'd expect the Eagles' offensive struggles to continue when they face better teams, when they get in the playoffs. I'd expect the same issues they've had pretty much the entire season to rear its ugly head again. But at least what I saw today, I go, the chances of that went from 100% to 97%. You know, like it did swing a tick in the favor of, hey, maybe something did change, because the offense did look good. A.J. Brown got 2 catches. You know, that's would I've liked to see him more involved in the offense. Yeah, was I a little annoyed that I only saw 1 catch really over the middle, and that was even like questionable, but it was heading towards a slant route. Like I've said it before, A.J. Brown makes his money with those slant routes. It opens up the deep ball. I would have liked to see more of that, because I do think that has been a problem this season. But Saquon Barkley, I think, had his best running day of the season, not stat line, but just necessarily like when you watched his runs, he looked really, really good. Credit to Fred Johnson. You know, Fred Johnson had a big task today. He was matched up against Max Crosby, and he did really, really well. Max Crosby got 1 sack in there, but I think when you face a Max Crosby, 1 sack giving up, that's fine. But the big thing that I took away from this game was, and this doesn't matter if you're facing a 2-win team or you're facing an undefeated team, Jalen Hurts was insanely accurate today. His deep ball to Devontae Smith early in the game was so on point, hit him in stride, and it's one of Jalen Hurts' best features as a quarterback is his deep ball accuracy, and he's showed it off. And then to thread the ball in there in essentially triple coverage to A.J. Brown, the guy was painfully accurate. He should have had more passing touchdowns if Dallas Goedert doesn't drop I don't know how he bobbles that, honestly. And Dallas Goedert's usually good for a few bobbles a season where you go like, how did you not catch that? And we saw that today. But Dallas Goedert had a game, finishes with, I think, 6 or 7 catches for like 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. Should have been 3. So all in all, there's not a lot of negatives you can take away from this performance. I mean, the Eagles' defensive line ate, as they probably should have. The Eagles' offense did what we haven't seen them do in quite some. I legitimately cannot remember the last time I saw the Eagles' offense put up that many points. And again, the detractors will tell you that they're facing a 2-win team. Very accurate. I mean, that is a fact, right? You're not going to take away from it. But what's also a fact is the Eagles needed to face a 2-win team. And what's also a fact is, at least for me as a fan, I can tell you the Eagles were in a tough situation because it was a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If the Eagles went out there and put up 31 points like they did and they just carved them up, I went, you should. You're facing a 2-win Raiders team. They're one of the worst teams in the league, if not the worst team in the league. But on the flip side, if they had struggled, if they were consistently going 3 and out, if they were failing to get to 21 points, what would the narrative been then? The good news is for WIP, they got their wish because Jalen Hurts was in fact benched for Tanner McKee with the Eagles up 31-0. Nick Sirianni said, no more. I can't take this anymore. I can't take this accurate quarterback. I'm going to bench him. Tanner, get in there. And Tanner McKee balled out. 3 for 3. Perfect quarterback rating. The way he handed the ball off was magnificent. I mean, if I would have done a quarterback bootleg on that 4th down because he would have gotten in and Tank Bigsby didn't. But Tanner McKee was perfect. His trade value right now has got to be a 2nd-round pick. So kudos to WIP. They got their wish. I don't know what exactly their talking point will be, but don't worry, it'll be some hot take bullshit. But no, overall, I mean, this was a really good week for the Birds. I'm going to be annoyed because I'm sure right now, as I record this, Nick Sirianni's at a podium acting like he beat a good team. I'm sure he's acting like he beat the Patriots or the Bills or the Seahawks or the like one of the premier teams in the NFL, and he didn't. I'm sure that Kevin Patullo is feeling himself a little bit. I'm sure that the players are going to have some snarky responses and be like, "Oh, is that what you guys want to see?" Yeah, it is, and you showed it. But now I need to see it against the good teams as well, and that's the big issue. Is we haven't seen it this season against the good teams. It's great to see it against the bad teams, and in this situation, you desperately needed it because you're riding a 3-game losing streak, and that's great. But I also need to see it consistently. I need to see it next week, the following week. Like, 1 week isn't good enough because that could be a blip on the radar. When you look at the story of this 2025 season, I've seen way more that lends me to believe that this was a blip than this is all of a sudden in week 15, the coaching staff, it finally clicked and they finally figured it out. Hope I'm wrong. I hope they have figured it out, and I hope that this wasn't a blip, and I hope that this propels them to success in the playoffs and they start dummying teams like they should. I mean, like their talent, when you look on paper, like their talent should, but I have my doubts. But the fact remains, they needed this win. They got this win. It's a good feeling. It's nice to have just a stress-free game as a Birds fan. Not a ton of complaints. I'm trying to think. I mean, Tyler Steen still sucks. Like, I'm literally trying to, grasp at straws and find a complaint. Tyler Steen sucks. That doesn't change. That's about it, honestly. But, again, the flip side of it would be, okay, you're facing a 2-win team. But if they had struggled, what would I be saying then? I'd be coming on and saying, yeah, they won, but, and I'm not even doing that. I'd rather say, yeah, they won, but they face a 2-win team than, yeah, they won, but they face a 2-win team, and how do you only put up 17 points against a 2-win football team? This is one of the few games this season where I go, they did not need to get bailed out by their defense. And that is a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. So while I have my doubts on whether or not this will continue the offensive success, because I do think that a lot of it had to do with the opponent they were facing, that's not necessarily scheme or anything, we'll see. I will say the last 2 weeks I have liked their first 15 plays, which are usually planned out before, leading up to the game. They're usually just pre-planned. I have liked what they've done in those first 15 plays. It's really been everything after that they've struggled with, but not this week. All right, please subscribe. Subscribing is cool. Like, dislike, whatever you guys want. You know where the buttons are, but subscribing is the most important thing. I need the subscribers. Please, God, help me out. And if you want to comment what you liked, what you didn't like, yeah, okay. Go Birds.